As a way of centering us for our time together, I want to read for you Psalms 118. I'll be reading verses 1 through 2, and then picking up and reading 19 through 29. And I'll be using the Common English Bible translation. Give thanks to the Lord because he is good, because his faithful love lasts forever. Let Israel say, God's faithful love lasts forever. Open the gates of righteousness for me, so I can come in and give thanks to the Lord. This is the Lord's gate. Those who are righteous enter through it. I thank you because you answered me, because you were my saving help. The stone rejected by the builders is now the main foundation stone. This has happened because of the Lord. It is astounding in our sight. This is the day the Lord acted. We will rejoice and celebrate in it. Lord, please save us. Lord, please let us succeed. The one who enters into the Lord's name is blessed. We bless all of you from the Lord's house. The Lord is God. He has shined a light on us. So lead the festival offering with ropes all of the way to the horns of the altar. You are my God. I will give thanks to you. You are my God. I will lift you up high. Give thanks to the Lord because he is good, because his faithful love lasts forever. Amen. I want to welcome you to Hobson UMC on YouTube. I am VHD Jr. I am the lead pastor here at Hobson, and I want to welcome you to our recording tonight. So glad that you have decided to spend a little time with us. It means a great deal when we hear from you and you let us know that you have listened. I was at a function a couple of days ago, and somebody says, I miss your Saturday evening posts. I said, well, I started doing something on YouTube to kind of replace that. I said, I'll send you a link to it, and so you can sit back and listen, because this is something we started almost a couple of years ago, a year and a half or so ago, when we were shut down for COVID, and something we have continued. It gives me an opportunity to have a conversation with my son, and it's kind of focuses me on where I might be going on this coming Sunday with the message as I discuss with you and discuss with him the upcoming lectionary passage for the week. And it's also just kind of a time not only for checking in, but to let you know that we are thinking about you, and to say to you how much we appreciate that. But also, it's an opportunity for me to thank those of you who are supportive in the ministry here at Hobson and in other ways, and greatly appreciate that. So, if you have ideas of what you want us to talk about, then please kind of let us know, because, as I say, this is not just for us; it is for you also, and we want to make sure that we are relevant for you. As I say, Trey helps me to give a context of where I might be going for Sunday, but certainly hearing from you and getting some ideas of what you want us to just kind of talk about or hear me talk about, then please let me know. And once again, let me thank you for tuning in. An important time whenever we gather at Hobson is our time that we celebrate with one another those joys that we have. And we also take the time to be able to lift up the concerns that we have, because we believe in being a praying community, and that we are joined together in prayer, that we believe that when we offer up those prayers of celebrations, that we give thanks for what God is doing in our midst, and when we lift up those concerns. And they may not be our personal concerns, but what we're saying to God is that, God, we want you to use us in the ways that you can, so that we might be able to be an answer to the prayers. A part of the a part of the celebrations that we like to do is we like to lift up the birthdays of those who are in our congregation, our friends and relatives that are having birthdays during the course of the week. And this week, I want to lift up Andrew Ward, Reverend Clinton M. Lewis, and Joey Ritchie, who used to play the piano for us years ago, Shatika Dunlap, Ramona Bard, Ed Simpson, Avery Patton. Also want to pause and congratulate the coach. He is the coach of the East Eagles, and I guess last week or so, his East Eagles won the state championship, and so we want to send a shout out to them. Also included in the birthdays are Becky Sharp, Catherine Gant, and Catherine, we need to see you back at Hobson. Come visit us again. Sharita Fannings, Christine Latanda, Fanny Leonard, cousin, classmate of mine, and Gwen, Claire Renee Jenkins, Genevieve Gail Binkley Johnson, and last, Edwin Fegan, Fireman Fegan. So I want to send out our birthday shout-outs to them. This week, ask that you be in prayer for Lena Edley. Her mother's birthday is this week, and so we know that she'll be sending up birthday wishes to her in heaven, and so we just want to pray. Also, pause at this moment. Just got an invitation. Lena's daughter Sydney will be graduating from Tennessee State. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but she'll be graduating. COVID surely kind of impacted a lot of that. And also want to ask for prayers for Dorothy Handy Davis and Stephen Handy. The anniversary of their father's death is also this week. He died on Easter Sunday back in 1998, but we ask that you keep them in prayers. We continue to pray for all those who are impacted by war and violence. In particular, we lift up the people of Ukraine and the violence that is just taking place in our own city. I also want to be just in prayer for, was listening to a report recently about the number of kids who are in DCS that are oftentimes having to spend the night in office buildings because there's just not enough placement for them. And so that's a critical issue within our community. We want to be in prayer for that. As always, I say that if you have special prayers that you want us to lift up, then please send them to me so that I can be in prayer. And those that you want to lift up as a part of the recording, let me know about those too, because we do believe in the power of prayer. And so I want to close with asking that we be in prayer for those who are dealing with issues of health, whether it is physical or mental or spiritual. We're praying for healing to take place, and want to give thanks while we've been praying for Janet Dubois, who had recent surgery. She's doing well, and she was in church last Sunday, and we just celebrate her presence and pray that she doesn't push herself, because she still has a way of going in recovery. But we know that we have a God who is bringing about healing in special ways. So I ask that you join us in praying for those individuals. Our scripture reading for this Sunday, which is Palm Sunday, comes from Luke's Gospel, the 19th chapter, and reading verses 28 through 40. And I'll be using the Common English Bible translation. After Jesus said this, he continued on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. As Jesus came to Bethphage and Bethany on the Mount of Olives, he gave 2 disciples a task. He said, "Go into the village over there, and when you enter it, you will find tied up there a coat that no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks, 'Why are you untying it?' just say, 'Its master needs it.' Those who have been sent found it exactly as he had said. As they were untying the coat, its owner said to them, "Why are you untying the coat?" They replied, "Its master needs it." They brought it to Jesus, threw their cloths on the coat, and lifted Jesus in onto it. As Jesus rode along, they spread their clothes on the road. As Jesus approached the road leading down from the Mount of Olives, the whole throng of his disciples began rejoicing. They praised God with a loud voice because of all of the mighty things that they had seen. They said, "Blessing on the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest heavens." Some of the Pharisees from the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, scold your disciples. Tell them to stop." He answered, "I tell you, if they were silent, the stones would shout." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, Trey, as I said, this coming Sunday is Palm Sunday, and I have really been going back and forth between whether to focus in on the passage that I read today, which is the which we often call the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, or whether to go and not do the Palm Sunday, but to instead do the Passion Sunday. I have to admit that with COVID and all of the things that have been going on in the last couple of years, that we've gotten away from looking at Holy Week and observing Holy Week as we used to in this place we call Hobson. I remember several years ago. I made a big deal out of Holy Week, and I am still one who believes that it is the most significant week in our year. This week, this Holy Week, and we used to do something. As I say, years ago, we did something every night during Holy Week. As a way of just kind of centering us, and we had some kind of activity and kind of walked through that week for what it meant to us. I think people particular enjoyed the Thursday night when we would do the Monday, Thursday, and then we would come back on Friday. There were a few years that we did not do something on Friday night, but we did something Friday during the day and during the time of where Jesus would have hung on the cross. I remember one time I tried to get those who were in attendance to be in prayer for 1 hour, remembering back, to Jesus is asking the disciples to pray, and they fell asleep, and what would it mean for us just to be in an hour of prayer? And needless to say, people came. We were not going to do anything we always had some kind of meal, and we would do that after the end of the hour. And a lot of people that were there, started going and getting ready before the hour was up. But still, nevertheless, that whole experience and having that Saturday of doing nothing and sitting and just contemplating. So I seriously considered just reading that story for us. That I'm concerned about churches and concerned about us when we go to the celebrations of Palm Sunday, and then we come back for Easter and we're celebrating once again, and we forget all of the things that happened during that week, which are critical, I think, to our understanding of the sacrifices that Jesus made for us, and why the week is important. But I decided, well, I'll come back and I'll go with this passage, and I must say I haven't really zeroed in, and maybe something will happen that will change between now and Sunday, and I must say that. Let's say, calling it Palm Sunday and then reading the Luke passage, Luke never mentions the palms and the waving of the palms, and so it was kind of maybe this is kind of reminding me that maybe I don't need to go that way. But the thing that did stand out to me, and it's kind of where in reading the story and where I've been kind of sitting with it for the last few days, is this whole activity about the donkey and the riding in. Now, if we were reading Matthew, really kind of spells out the riding of the donkey and the reason that it was to fulfill, what had been written, that the Messiah would come in riding in on a coat. But but as I was reading it and kind of focusing in, and putting myself in that place, that had I been in Jerusalem, we focus in on the parade, but there were two parades that took place that day. That the Roman emperor would have come in from one side of the town, and Jesus was coming in from the other. And it would have been interesting to see where the people went and to which side of the town they went, to whether or not, and how they honored that. I'd like to think that today, that if that were to happen, I'd be on the right side of town for that. But as I have listened to some of the things that are going on and the way people are, and the the political polarization and how we're choosing sides, that even some of the people of whom profess to be followers of Jesus Christ probably would have gone over to the other side and to see the Roman emperor riding in on his great stallion and coming into town and looking at all of the military might that would have been with them. Certainly that image is there as we think about what's going on in Ukraine and the people that are coming in, and how we we choose our allegiance today. But I want to go back to this, to this coat and the story that Luke shares with us about what happened with that, because I do think that it is something for us to consider, and it poses for me some questions that I think we have to ask ourselves. Excuse me. In it. It says he's gotten to Bethany and Bethpage, and of course we talked about Bethany last week, and we know that that's where some dear friends of hers, of his, were, and then Bethpage. There are a lot of people that question. Historians want to know. Well, we're not really for sure where Bethpage was, but what we do know that it was probably just a small community, just a gathering of a few people, and they're there. And Jesus, in ready to go into the sea, into Jerusalem, and knows the history and knows the story, knows that he's supposed to be going in on a coat. Ask two of his disciples. He says, "I want you to go into the village that's over there, and when you get there, you're going to find a coat." That no one has written. I want you to untie it and bring it back to me. Now, when we tell that story, and there's some stuff that is left out, or people imagine that there are some things that are left out, because to be that obedient, and that's what I like about it, is that they just go and they follow Jesus's instructions to go in. Some of whom are probably is not as obedient, and I may have if I were to be honest, probably within that group. We like to think that maybe Jesus had already made the arrangements, that maybe he had been in there as he's been walking around and had seen it and knew where it was, and so then sent them fully aware that what he was sending them to do, that they were going to be able to do it. But I think if that was the case, maybe he had seen it, but I don't think that he had made the kind of arrangements, because if that was the case, he would just simply said to the man, look, I'm going to need this coat in a couple of days, and when I need it, I'm going to send in two of the guys that, with me, and just, they'll just say, that the arrangements have all been made. But that doesn't happen. And how, Luke tells the story is that when they go in, they're just untying the coat. And I see them as, walking off, and the owners kind of comes out, and I'm sure that, some of the, language for Luke got cleaned up. But I imagine, you come out, and say, what the hell are y'all doing? I mean, and I just kind of, look at it from the standpoint, if we bring it in a, in a contemporary sense, Jesus, sends a couple people in and says, I'm going to need to go in town with a brand new Mustang convertible. I'm going to be riding on the back of it, and just go in. You're going to see it. It's going to be in the parking lot down there on the corner of Rosa Park. Just bring it to me. And I can see the people coming out saying, what are you doing in that car? That is not your car. But they simply follow the instructions, and when they come out, and the owner, they said, the master needs it. I just see in their deep conviction of being able to go, and just in following Jesus' order, that even the owner, in seeing in them, just somehow was impressed that they were willing to come to that point. And so, he says, okay, go ahead and take it. But then here becomes, kind of the, as they're walking, and it becomes kind of the funny part of the story for me, is because they say they're going to get a donkey that has never been, that's never been ridden. Now, donkeys are difficult anyway. We know them as stubborn animals, and they're hard to be able to deal with. But one can only imagine what one would have been like that has never been ridden before. That they're taking it back and going in, and I have I've reread the Jesus stories again, and in the last few days, and looked at some of the movies that I could find on Netflix and all that kind of stuff. Never do I ever see Jesus doing anything other than this one time. Do you see Jesus in riding any kind of horse or donkey or anything? So here they're going back, they're carrying this donkey. They know that this donkey is getting ready to buck and do all these kind of things because it's never been ridden. It is not tame. And they are just imagining in themselves, this is going to be quite a sight, seeing this guy who has never ridden riding this coat. And they say that when they get back and they present the coat to Jesus, then they take their clothes. And I see them taking their garments, their coat, and putting it on top of this coat. And I just see Jesus just getting on. And the coat is not bulking. It is just accepts the responsibility. So that once again, not only were these disciples obedient and responded to the command, But I just believe that the donkey, also in that sense that Jesus just spoke. Now here's one that can speak to, we know that can speak to the winds and the waves and make them behave. That in this moment that he just spoke a kind of a reassuring word to the colt. That even though this was an experience that the colt had never experienced before, that there was something about Jesus' voice in that moment that calmed the colt and allowed them to be able to go in. And so we know that he goes in the city, and while they are not waving the palm branches, they're not shouting Hosanna. It does not, in Luke's version, they are still shouting. And Luke lets us know that what they're shouting and what they're claiming is of the great and wonderful deeds that they had seen Jesus do. I think that in this crowd were many of the people of whom had been traveling with him in the last few weeks as they made their journey to Jerusalem, people of whom he had helped along the way. Maybe there were people in the crowd that had been in the crowd when he fed the thousands, that maybe that accompanying him into Jerusalem, or were Mary and Martha and Lazarus going into the community, that maybe as they were traveling along just a few days before that, that when they were going into Jericho, that Zacchaeus, of whom he had performed a miracle and transformation in his life, all of these people were there. And they're seeing him coming in. And while there were some that may have known the story about the one that's coming in, that for them it was just this tremendous act of seeing this one of whom had done great and wonderful things in their lives, and they just began to shout. They were on that side of town, while the other people who were lining themselves up with the political powers of the day, people of whom had done nothing but oppress them and enslave them. But on the other side of the town were those people of whom were shouting and giving thanks for what he had done and for what he meant in their life. And somehow that in that moment, that in seeing him coming in, that while on the other end it came in with might, this king was coming in proclaiming peace. And I just have to believe that they were hoping that somehow this event would ultimately lead to the kind of peace that they all had been hoping and praying for. But the other part of the story, and I know I've dealt with this part of it before, and that is that the Pharisees, that this story reminds us that even when Jesus comes, and either when Jesus is doing great things, and when we have seen how those people who are obedient, and seeing even how a donkey was obedient to him, how that upsets people, that when you're blessing and when you're talking about peace, that it disturbs people. And it says that the Pharisees told him to shut up. I have no doubt that the Pharisees were there, had probably been sent because they had been at the other parade. They had been aligning themselves with the political powers. And we've seen that, recently within our own state, of how certain religious leaders have stood up with some of our legislatures and stood with them with some of the atrocious bills that they are preparing, and the funding that kind of takes away. I saw some preachers the other day that were standing with them as they're coming up with new legislation and making it and broadening, having people not having to have any license, and expanding it for being able to carry firearms and stuff. And so they had been sick. And had probably told, look, you got to shut this guy up. And so they go and they're telling Jesus, look, this is not going to make them happy. You need to tell the people to shut up and to be quiet, and probably add at some points to them and say, look, they need to go on the other side of town and be a part of that, so that we can, at least during this Passover, we will not have any political disturbance. We won't have be locking up and killing anybody, and we just need to stop it right here. But Jesus says, that there's sometimes that even if I made them to be quiet, that the very stones that line the road were shot out because of this moment that's in that. And so, so I will, as I say, I'm still thinking about it, and looking at ways that in this moment, that while I want us to be able to give thanks and to be able to celebrate all of the great and wonderful things that Jesus does, I still want it to be a time that challenges us to ask ourselves as to whether or not we would be obedient to, even whether or not, we're going to allow Jesus to speak to us, as I believe that he spoke to the donkey, and for us to be able to do the things. But more importantly, are we going to proclaim all of the great and wonderful things that Jesus has done in our lives, and to ask ourselves, how in this time, do we recognize Jesus and recognize Jesus for who he really is? Are we people? They followed him into Jerusalem, and while there were probably many of them that were just caught up in the parade, there were most of them who were with him were well aware of what was about to happen, and yet they still followed him into the city. And just to, as I say, just to ask our own selves, whether or not we are as obedient to what Jesus is asking us as we should. And then finally, are we the kind of people who are really singing and giving praise to Jesus for all of the things that he's done and what he means to us? And are we doing it in such a way that we do it with boldness and courage that other people are listening to us? So it's still a work in process for me, and we'll see. And so I ask you to be in prayer for us as I wrestle with between Palm Sunday and Passion Sunday. Amen. Well, Trey, how things going?
Things are going pretty good. How are they going with you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I know you've been dealing with allergies and other things, colds or whatever, but how is that doing, and what you've been taking?
It's getting better, I guess. It's only at nighttime when it kind of takes its toll on me, when I'm kind of sitting still and not moving around, and, really paying attention to it. Taking a couple of nighttime, pills, but, I've been through this before, so.
Well, yeah, and, this is the season, and they keep talking about all this stuff, and I guess with the cold weather and the rain, maybe it'll go down for a couple of days, but it'll be right back up. So, so what's on your mind? What you been thinking about?
Oh man.
I guess because we started it out a few weeks ago, and I guess we should finish it up. And what did you think about the game on Monday night?
Oh man, I enjoyed the game. It's always bittersweet when you get to the end of the tournament. Oh man, there's no more basketball. It's what we gonna do now?
Right.
But I watched the game. I thought it was very competitive, and like they were saying during the post game, I don't think that anybody lost the game. Okay. I just think that Kansas won, and when you are down 20-something points going into the second half, and you're able to make adjustments and hit somebody in the mouth, it's like, they went out there and won the game. They won the game, and it was. I mean, that's you witness history. That has never happened before.
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest margin.
Yeah, that's the biggest margin ever to overcome. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well,
What about you?
I must admit that when it got to halftime and it was 15 points, and I kind of watched Kansas walk off the floor, and I listened to Hewitt Davis, and he sounded real confident and cocky going in.
Yeah, he did.
It was like, I don't know. And so I turned over and checked on Ben Franklin for a few minutes, and said, well, I'll try to time it when I can come back in, and I'll see North Carolina win, and I'm sure they'll have Michael Jordan will come out with a special Carolina shoe to commemorate. And when I turned back on, man, Kansas was coming after him. I was like, this is going to be a game before it's over.
Yeah, so
And sure enough, it was.
funny thing about it, I went and took a shower at halftime. I was like, shh, I'm gonna watch the rest of the game. But when I got to the shower, it was like, man, 10 points. I'm like, oh, okay, they did their thing. So
Yeah, it was. I am sure it was a lot of that going on, and it certainly has been. And I know a few North Carolina fans, and
sure.
A lot of them had some. They were not happy campers. They were not happy campers.
Well, they got to beat Duke twice this year.
Yeah.
So they kind of had a win, in the midst of all of that. I know they wish they got the ultimate prize, but at least they can hang their hat on something.
And Kansas was the only team that I had picked to go to the Final Four. That got to the Final Four. So to some degree, I thought that they were just going to be a consistent presence. I didn't think that they had enough to be able to win it all, but they ended up winning it all. So that's a great thing. So and then, but I also would have to say, and I was looking at. I did do a women's bracket, and I did pick South Carolina to win, and so I am very happy for South Carolina. I have some friends in South Carolina, so I want to congratulate them on the ladies and the other USC. Got some people talking about USC, and they're like, USC didn't win. They lost it. It's like, no, there's another USC that's in. So shout out to Don Staley and her group of young ladies in their victory. So you gotta love anytime and perennial team like Connecticut. They get beat, even though South Carolina's been there before. To see them actually beat Geno Smith and those girls, is well deserved. Yeah. Geno going into it was had never lost the finals. He's gotten there, and lost
Final Four.
And lost sometime in the semis, but he never lost the final until the other night, and so. That was, I enjoyed watching that game on Sunday in lot. So I guess the last thing that I just want to, just kind of touch bases with you in particular as I'm looking at, trying to make this decision on what to do with regards to focusing in on the celebration, or to maybe focus in on the passion, and that is the news. The news recently has just been so full, and I have just listened to, I'm listening to carjackings and people getting shot and mass shootings that are taking place, and all of this. And then, of course, I have to, I started my day off kind of getting a report, listening to some of the reports that are going on with Ukraine, and then kind of switch over and listen to what's going on locally, and it's all bad news. And then I turn and I listen to some of the bills and the stuff that are going on. And it almost it sounds, like, and you don't hear the people of whom are just raising their voices, are just saying, this stuff is just wrong, and we've got to be able to do something. I hear about legislation saying we got to put more money into police, we got to put more money into the war, we got to more. But nobody is talking about, how do we move to the peace and we go with that. And so I just wonder, for you, because I think you're probably like, a lot of other people who are out there. I mean, how do you deal with all of this news and all of this negative stuff that's just going on?
You know what, man? We've had this conversation a time or two.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm kind of numb to all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You just, I try to compartmentalize the stuff, and I know it's kind of tough to say it and for people to, hear it, but, a lot of that doesn't hit home.
Yeah.
Right. And until something hits home, it's just like, you can only say a prayer for them, and you can, keep your focus on what you can control. And that's pretty much how I go about, my life.
Yeah, and it's kind of that, that kind of attitude, and I think, a lot of people have it, that, I was kind of imagining, what if we were, Jerusalem, back then, and I just think there would have been a lot of folk that would have just said, I'm not going to either parade, I'm not going to, I'm not going to go see this one. I'm not going to see that one. I'm just going to be able to, stay here in the house and chill, and because it just doesn't seem like we're living in a time and a place of where, because when we're listening to the polarization, that there just doesn't appear to be that common ground of where any of us can come to a point where we agree on anything. And when I was in a conversation, just last night, and with a person who, says, I don't even identify myself, even though I am Christian, I don't even talk about being a Christian anymore, because nobody knows what a Christian is anymore, because it's been, hijacked by one side or the other side. So,
Sure, yeah.
How do we come to that? And so, as we're moving toward, this time of, a celebration of new life and new beginnings, I just wonder whether, we're people who are just kind of, not at either parade, but just kind of just sitting in the house and just hoping that that our prayers and that our families, our immediate families, and the people whom we hold close are not impacted by it. As you said, until it hits home, it's the whether it's been with COVID or whether it's been, I see the stories of the war. Yes, we've got people that got out, but then they show the pictures of all of the bodies that are lying on the street. So it's just a challenging, this Holy Week is going to be challenging for a lot of us. So, okay.
All right.
I want to thank you for tuning in, and it is my prayer that as we enter into this Holy Week, that it is a time for reflection, and that all of us, as that you pray for me, I'll be praying for you, that we will be able to sit in this week and to do our own examination asking ourselves, are we being people of whom are obedient as Jesus is calling us to do? And are we people who recognize the great and wonderful things that are being done in our midst, and whether or not our voices are being heard to the point that we sing praises to God, and that we're unashamed to align ourselves in this time of where we're having so much religious and cultural and political polarization. Where are you? And where will you stand in the midst of all that is going on? So, once again, I thank you for spending some time with us, and be safe. Remember the prayers that we have lifted up, and once again, I give thanks for you and for the time that you spent with us.